Here's what you do after a breakup. And yes, after you're done with all the, eating ice cream, feeling bad about yourself sort of thing. Here's what you actually should do. And by the way, my name is Jason Van Ruler. I am a therapist. I work a lot with clients, couples, the whole works on healthier, better, more secure relationships. And so I want to teach you how to do that because one of the questions I get asked the most is, okay, I just went through a breakup. Now what do I do, right? I know I don't feel well. I know I'm not happy. I know I'm not enjoying this. So what do I do? Well, let me tell you what most people do. What most people do is they get out of a relationship. They're really bummed out, sad about that. They feel sad for a little bit of time, grieve the relationship, and then they realize they don't like how that feels. And so even though they know they probably shouldn't, they just go out and they actually start a new relationship with somebody else. And that relationship distracts them from the pain they felt. They never really think too much about why they keep having the same problems, and they go on, rinse, repeat for the rest of their life. Now, there's no judgment here because let's be honest, I used to date too before I was married for 100 years. And when I dated, I was really predisposed to do the same thing. I would break up with somebody, I'd never think too much about it, never ask myself too many questions, never be okay being alone. And then I just find someone else to help me be distracted from what I felt and thought at the time. So I totally get it. But if I'm a therapist and I'm talking to you about what a therapist would tell you, not what I've done in the past, and what a healthier thing to do would be, it's deal with the stuff, right? And here's the reason for that is relationships don't always work. I mean, I think sometimes we feel like every relationship we have has to work, or at least if it ends, it's not our fault, or somehow we should feel great about it. But the truth is, like, even healthy, secure relationships end sometimes, and that's sad. And when it ends, we learn things about ourselves. And so we need to figure that part out. And so what would be better than finding someone to distract yourself from would be finding a better relationship with yourself. Because here's what often happens is that we have a relationship and we kind of lose ourselves in the relationship. Like there become things that we do relationally that we never did before. And maybe some of those things are wonderful things, like they're great habits or routines or whatever, or sometimes they're things that aren't really even yours. They're not things that you actually care about. So like a prime example is maybe you always ate at the same restaurant every Friday night because that was date night, but you actually don't like that restaurant. It just was fine because you were together. Okay, well, what do you like? So one of the first things you need to do is you just need to identify like, okay, the relationship ended. What are my insights about why that happened? So if I'm thinking about like, why did the relationship end? And I'm listening to what they've told me, what do I think my role in that was? And now I know some people are going to stop. They're going to say, well, I was with a narcissist. And so I actually had no role in this, Jason. It was all their fault and they're bad and terrible, to which I'd say you might be right. I didn't date them. They may have been awful. And certainly I'm being a little bit joking here, but actually if they were abusive in any way, or they pressured you, or they did terrible things, like I'm not here to say you deserve that. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am here to say is you need to think through what it is that you did in the relationship that played a role in that relationship. So you might say, well, they're a terrible person, but here's the thing, Jason, like I chose them. There's a part of me that was attracted to that, or they're a terrible person, but I got myself into the relationship and I didn't ask questions, or I was conflict avoidant, or I abandoned myself. So I'm just kind of looking for you to see like, can you figure out what your role was? Because if you don't know that, you are likely to repeat the same relationship. So that's really important. So you can do that with a friend, you can journal that, you might need a therapist to work through that if it was really messy, or if you've consistently had the same experience, probably good to talk to somebody about that, but that is a great place to start. The second thing is knowing what I know about my role in that, do I want to change something? Now, you might say, yeah, I totally want to change that. I want to pick better people. Okay, well then like, what do I need to do to figure that out? Or no, I think I'd just be myself, but that like ended badly and that's the cost of doing business. Fine, but what's my role? Do I want to change that? By the way, all the time you're doing this, you're not dating someone. So I need to be really clear about that. Like this is not you dating someone. Because you're figuring things out. And then number 3 is I need to find myself again. And what that means is not like you lost yourself, but maybe you literally did, but I need to get back to who I am and how I am healthy. Because oftentimes, again, we kind of put all of our whole self into a relationship and we end up doing things that aren't really honoring of ourselves. So you might say like working out's really important to me, but when we were together, I just stopped working out. And I stopped working out because I felt like they didn't care. And so even though it's really good for me, Jason, I quit doing that. So I want you to think a little bit about, okay, what did I need? What was I not getting? How do I find myself again? And then how do I find a way to be happy there? Now, this is the really tricky part. So this is the part a lot of people don't do. They maybe do a little bit of what I'm talking about, but then this whole figuring out how to be happy on your own thing, a lot of people quit. And I get it, it's hard to be alone. But what happy being alone looks like is like you have a life where you take really good care of yourself and you have friends and community and you love people and you're kind, but like you don't have to have a relationship. Like you actually could be happy without one. Not ideal, maybe it's not what you want, it's not what your heart desires, but you're able to be happy in that space. And that will require something of you. It's gonna require some acceptance, probably leaning into some discomfort, knowing what you need, knowing what you want. Now, why is it important to do this? Well, because if you lean into that authentic self and you love the authentic self and who you really are, you will tend to attract people who love that too. If you don't know that, and you're simply doing like pain avoidance and distraction stuff, you will tend to try to adapt to somebody else. Because again, you don't want to feel bad. So maybe you hate sports, but they love sports, but you really want a relationship. So now you love sports too. Or maybe they like eating at such and such a restaurant and you hate it, but now you're okay with it too because you really want a relationship. That's what happens when we don't know ourselves. And that's not to say that you should know yourself and like never do anything outside of that, but it's just to say like you need to know what's true for you so that we're operating from a firm and stable foundation. If we don't do that, what happens is we end up just giving ourselves away to everybody that we date. And after you do that a couple times, you start to get a little bit confused about who you are and what you even like anymore. And maybe you've had this situation occur where you end a relationship and you're just kind of left like thinking like, what do I actually want? Like, I don't know if I'm doing anything wrong. I don't really even know who I am anymore. I just know who people kind of tell me to be. And so I need to find that person. So when you find that person, who is you, who you've been all along, hopefully, but you really realize that, can you love that person? Can you love who you are? And not in a weird narcissistic sort of way, but just like, can you genuinely love who you are and accept that? Good and bad, because we all have it. Like we're all an amalgamation of like good and bad things. And so can you love that person? Because when you do, you are then probably closer to being ready to date, because that's a thing that you can do that is an add-on to your life. It's not a replacement. What a lot of people do is they try to use a relationship with someone else to replace the relationship they should have with themselves. And that's really tough. And so I just want to let that set in. We try to replace the relationship we should have with ourselves by recruiting someone else. And when we do that, guess what? I hate to spoil this for you. They never really make good on it because they can't, because they're not you. And so they will always let you down and disappoint you because you're using a relationship for something it shouldn't be for. And so if you've gone through a breakup, definitely cry, be sad, grieve the relationship, all of that. But then switch and kind of look at this as like this profound opportunity to find yourself again. And maybe that's easy. Maybe you're a person who lives in authenticity most of the time. And so this is like not a challenge for you. Like, Jason, I actually know what I want. I'm really secure and I'm good at showing up in that place. Cool, that might not take you very long. But if you're a person who's like avoidant or anxiously attached or disorganized attachment, this might actually be the work you've needed to do all along. And so see it for what it is. It's an opportunity to do that. Now, it's gonna be uncomfortable, but I had this thing I talk to my clients about where like, if you're gonna be uncomfortable anyway, why not do something healthy? Like literally, if you're gonna be uncomfortable anyway, do something healthy, because why not? Like, why waste all that opportunity to do something healthy on just settling and coping? You've done that already. It doesn't suit you. It doesn't look good on you. So take this time. If you're watching this, you're gonna say, Jason, how much time is that? It's been like 3 weeks, so is that enough time? And I'm just gonna say to you, if you're really honoring yourself, do you think that's enough time? Do you believe that's enough time for you? If you don't, then figure out how long you need. And maybe you don't even need to put a time on it. Maybe you'll just know. Because when we live in truth and we live in our authentic self, a lot of these things that we complicate are actually pretty simple. And that's the really hard part, is that they're simple, but not easy. And so when you live in that space, it will be simple, but the part that's challenging is the discomfort. But if you can learn to live in that space and love who you are, be your authentic self, know what you need, what you want, you are more likely to attract a partner that will meet you in that spot. Because what I don't want you to do is just more of the I'll be whoever you need me to be to have a relationship, because that's exhausting. And literally people get to the end of their life, or they get married for a really long time and they go, oh, turns out I didn't like any of this. Bummer. My life is over. And I wish I had just said that a long time ago. And so I don't want you to live in that space. So if you're going through a breakup, my most sincere apologies, because I know it's really, really hard. And I do. And I know I joke in some of my videos, but like, I'm definitely not joking now. Like, I know that's really tough. But what I want you to do is to take whatever that light was that you had inside you that was extinguished, and I want you to find a way to light that again. Because when you are in that light, that will attract the relationship you want. And so just avoid doing the thing where you just say, I'll just use somebody else's light, because at the end of the day, it's not actually what you want anyway. If this is of interest to you, I've got some courses, I've got information, and I would love to keep sharing with you. And I'll tell you why. I want everybody to have a secure relationship. And I know most of us didn't grow up seeing what that looked like. And so a lot of us have attachment wounds that prevent us from having those relationships or make it really difficult. And as someone who's an anxious attacher, I know just as well as most about how that gets in the way, and it makes things really challenging, and it prevents us from getting the love that we want. So I want to help you with that. I've kind of dedicated like my whole life to it. So if this is of interest to you, let me show you how to get the relationship you want, first with yourself, then with others.